You let go, you leave them where they stand, and you collect the troops up again, and we get ready to go do this thing again. So they have an incredible team. They beat us, but I'm pretty sure we'll be back and we'll be ready to battle again.
When you feel like you have greatness inside of you, even if you're playing alongside somebody as great as LeBron, you want to know if you can do it on your own. You want to know if you could do it as the centerpiece and not just the sidekick. And yes, some people can call that selfish. Other people can call that confident.
The 2018 Cavs were easily one of the most fascinating teams of my lifetime. Kyrie Irving that June walks off the court with LeBron claiming they'd be back. And a month later, he requests a trade. Reportedly, he wanted to leave LeBron so bad that he threatened to have surgery. The Cavaliers, in response, they sent him to a rival Celtics team. And in the process, they built their roster full of big names, but extremely odd chemistry. Derrick Rose was brought from New York, fresh off his best season in 3 years. Dwayne Wade rejoined LeBron off his failed stint in Chicago, and Isaiah Thomas was brought from that Kyrie trade, but we wouldn't see him until later in the season. The Cavaliers traded Kyrie, which was obviously devastating, but they had to. But they also got 3 former All-Stars. That created this new weird narrative of, okay, they lost Kyrie, but did they actually get better? Yes, that actually was a thing. Funny ass times. The NBA schedule would produce, giving us the matchup that we wanted off the rip, the Cavaliers versus Boston. LeBron's new team versus Kyrie's new team. These were the 2 teams that we expected to see at the end, so this matchup was highly anticipated. But unfortunately, the life was sucked out of this extremely hyped season opener literally 5 minutes into the game. Don't worry, I won't show the play. But this one moment completely trumped the narrative surrounding this game for like the past 2 months. The Cavaliers would go on to win that game, followed by another win, making it 2 straight. But after that, they got off to a very rough start. They started their season off 5-7, with 4 of their losses being against Orlando, Brooklyn, New York, and Atlanta, 4 of the worst teams in the conference at that time. This obviously sparked the notion of, wow, they really miss Kyrie Irving. But oddly enough, after struggling like they did losing to the bottom feeders of the East, they quickly turned it around and won 13 consecutive games. During this extremely impressive streak, they had LeBron shooting out of his mind, Kevin Love reverting back to Minnesota K-Love, Dwayne Wade looking like an early 6th Man of the Year candidate, and the Cavaliers playing the best defense they had all year. Even after they ended their streak, they got right back on a mini one. By the end of this time frame, this is how the Eastern Conference standings look, with the Cavaliers winning 18 out of their last 19 games. Oh, and while the Cavaliers had their 13-game streak, the Celtics, they were having their own 16-game streak. So we knew this was the matchup we were getting at the end of the year, even without Gordon Hayward. But even with all the winning the Cavaliers had, that team still definitely had their hurdles. Derrick Rose, he just wasn't happy in Cleveland. I don't believe he was. He injured his ankle, and he damn near reconsidered if he even wanted to play basketball anymore. Also, what made this team extremely weird, despite them winning, is the fact that the piece they got back from the Kyrie trade hadn't even played yet. So it was always that big question mark looming around that team of, how is this going to look when everybody gets back? Isaiah Thomas returned the day after New Year's, and he played well. But unfortunately, we can never just live in the moment. The NBA is led by storylines and narratives. And the new one after he came back was, is Kyrie Irving even better than Isaiah Thomas to begin with?
You think Kyrie Irving, based on branding and perception, is way up here. And Isaiah Thomas, good player. Points, Kyrie Irving averages a bucket more. Field goal percentage, close. Assists, even. Free throw percentage, dead even. Neither one of them plays much defense.
Isaiah Thomas actually played great for those first 2 games, especially in the minutes that he played. But he said something recently that this one little stint he had in Cleveland could literally expose. He said he was never a defensive liability. Well, the Cavaliers that year without him, they were still pretty bad. They had a 111 defensive rating, which was at the bottom half of the league. But with Isaiah Thomas on the Cavaliers that year, they were the worst defensive team in NBA history. That's no exaggeration. With Isaiah already making a bad defensive team historically bad, and the fact that he reportedly had a clash with their second best player, and the fact that he was an offensive liability because he just wasn't back from that hip injury yet, you knew his time in Cleveland, it was coming to an end. I remember that year where LeBron played Minnesota and he had this game-winning block followed by this game-winning shot, and it almost looked like he intentionally looked off Isaiah Thomas in the celebration. That's when I personally knew, yeah, this is over.
I think when you lose teammates, and the trade deadline is always difficult times for everybody, so huge shout out to my former teammates, Shump, D Rose, Jay Crowder, Isaiah, D Wade, and especially Channing.
The Cavaliers, that All-Star break, they converted all these players. Mind you, these were all players they just got that summer into these new players. The most legit move I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's crazy because even though the players they traded were bigger names, the new players they got were clearly much better fits, especially on paper. So it made sense. With this completely new roster, the Cavs finished their season 16-10, and really none of these new pieces looked quite how the Cavs anticipated. If there was an example of players crumbling to the pressure of having to play with LeBron, it was these guys. Rodney Hood, he had a moment where he didn't even want to check into the game and his production significantly dropped. The Cavaliers got George Hill to begin with because he was shooting 45% from deep with Sacramento that season. He was shooting 41% for the two previous seasons. He joins LeBron and his percentile drops by 10 in 1 year. Larry Nance, he didn't exactly change life for them at all, and he was mainly just a lob threat wearing his dad's jersey from the Raptors. And Jordan Clarkson without the VC, well, he was probably the best addition, at least in the regular season, and I have to emphasize that. The NBA playoffs would kick off, and from the start, it was pretty much the LeBron show. The Cavs met Indiana with Victor Oladipo having his breakout year, and early on, they really struggled. It was like if LeBron didn't have a Herculean performance, they couldn't win. In game one, they got destroyed and their whole team looked flat, including LeBron. Their whole starting lineup went 17 for 47 from the field, which clearly wouldn't be enough really against anybody. In game two, LeBron came out on a mission, scoring 20 points in the first quarter and 46 in the whole game. Game three in Indiana, that was a great representation of what I just said. If LeBron doesn't turn into Superman himself, the team doesn't win. LeBron scored 15 points in that second half. That's not the most LeBron performance in the playoffs, but it's not terrible. The rest of the team scored 18 in a half. Games 4 and 5. This was a good example of why I believe this may have been the best version of LeBron. He scored 76 points total in these two games, and he only made one three-pointer. And the one three-pointer he made was this, literally the game winner. This is when LeBron didn't really settle for threes. He put his head down and ruthlessly attacked the rim. This series surprised a lot of people because it actually went 7 games, with LeBron having to score 45 points in game 7 to actually clinch the series. And if you want to know how reliant this team actually was on LeBron himself, in the 3 losses they had versus Indiana that series, it was all 3 games where LeBron didn't score at least 30 points. In the 4 wins, he averaged 40 on the most crazy splits.
How do we read this one? Is this the year that Toronto breaks through against the Cleveland Cavaliers?
We the North. We the North. This is the year. This is a different Raptors team. They're going to win this series. They got the best bench in the NBA. Well, that's going to come into play. They're going to have 3 or 4 bodies that they can throw at LeBron. He won't be able to win 4 out of 7 playing the way they play, where they give him the ball every single time and go 1-on-5. That will not work against this Raptors team.
Toronto was coming off their best season in their franchise's history, so you can see why Charles Barkley felt that way. That Cavs team went from going 7 with Indiana to sweeping the best team in their conference, and LeBron, he legitimately broke up a bromance. This one stat right here is why Masai Ujiri had to break up Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. I'm sorry. In the last 3 games, LeBron scored more points by himself than those two did combined. That offseason, their best player and probably the most loyal player they've ever had, he got traded, and their reigning coach of the year got fired. The Cavaliers versus Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. The matchup we always thought we would get, but we didn't think it would look like this. The Cavaliers fell down 0-2 with LeBron having his worst game of the playoffs in game 1, and they lost, no surprise, and having 42 in game 2, but they still lost. In games 3 through 7, being down 0-2 with his second best player, Kevin Love, essentially having to miss games 4 and 5 with an injury. Look at what this man LeBron did, and look at what the rest of his team did. He outscored his next 3 best players by himself.
I was just trying to see if you knew exactly what his state of mind was. Did he think that you guys had it won, or did he think he was trying to make a play? Not sure.
What do you mean I'm not sure? No, I don't know his state of mind.
Did you know if he knew the score?
Thank you.
If Cleveland was going to have any chance of winning this extremely lopsided series, they had to win game 1. And in overtime, LeBron was gassed, and I think he kind of mentally checked out. In the rest of the series, it was just domination by that big 5. LeBron got swept for the second time in his career in the finals, kind of in the exact same fashion, where it was him with the team that probably shouldn't have gotten there versus a dynasty. Everybody knew this was LeBron's last game in Cleveland officially, and at least he went out making 8 consecutive finals and having arguably the greatest playoff run of any player maybe ever.
He's unbelievable, and I think we've played now till May 25th and May 27th the last 2 years, and we started on September 25th, and that's every day. Like every day, that you're totally focused on this. And he's gone past that 8 straight times.